Good morning. It is podcast 9. Getting in there, getting inside your eardrums. Here we are, resonating deeply inside your brain, changing the audio waves into a series of vibrations and coding that your language centers are processing into mental images and meanings. How you doing? Tuesday morning, grey, rain, cold, damp, and dreary. But that's what's happening. It doesn't bother me. I am immune to bad weather this morning. I had a nice, peaceful evening yesterday. I just chilled out. I was still very sore and stiff from jiu-jitsu at the weekend, and I just did nothing. Watched the movie John Wick with Keanu Reeves. It was cool. Although a bunch of mean Russian gentlemen. Actually, I don't want to do any spoilers in case anybody didn't see it. But I've been reading a book at the minute, and it is called Zen and the Martial Arts. And it is pretty shit. It's like written by a sort of an 80s American martial arts guy. And that was kind of like, it's hard to say what kind of an era that was. It was kind of like the golden era of bullshit martial arts. Before, because really I think MMA was probably when MMA just fucking straightened out what was nonsense and what was not. And up until then, it was kind of hard to know. But yeah, it's good. It's like there's loads of like Bruce Lee quotes in there, and but there's also a lot of sort of parable-like stories where this guy is like going to these places doing like I don't know what kind of shit he's doing, like Hapkido or some sort of branch of karate, and he's doing his training, and everybody fucking talks to this like Socrates, and they're just like, I can't remember what the guy's name is. Let's say it's John or whatever, and it's just like, John, I see you are having great difficulty in your training. First, you must overcome your own obstacles within yourself before you can overcome the obstacles that are external to you. And it's just all like, extremely deep philosophical advice, where then he's like, and as soon as I overcame the obstacles, I felt a rush, and immediately my techniques became incredibly proficient and fluid. It's just hard to take seriously. There's so many videos on YouTube of like, 8th Dan black belt masters of, whatever, the deadliest fighting style that you've never heard of. And they're just fat, middle-aged guys that have somehow recruited a big stable of morons. And they do these, like, what sort of exhibition displays of to kind of demonstrate their martial arts prowess. And then they have a bunch of these dorks coming lunging at them, and then they they wrist lock everybody in a sort of a conveyor belt of morons, just flying around the mats doing like little James Bond front flips, from these bullshit wrist locks. And and that was a huge market, like back in the States, all through the 80s. I guess these days now it's becoming less, it's becoming more obvious that it's nonsense, But I mean, it's not helping that Steven Seagal is like at the UFC events, like nodding, when Anderson Silva like front snap kicks somebody in the jaw, and then Steven Seagal like does like a knowing nod. He's just like, that's what we practice. That's what we practiced. And Yeah, it's hard to know. I mean, what Steven Seagal is a big dude. I'm sure he's really good at Aikido. But I don't think there's any Aikido masters that are doing too well in the UFC right now. Although I have heard that it's a really good precursor for grappling and jiu-jitsu, because it teaches the valuable concepts of misdirection and timing, which are crucial in an art like Aikido. But that stuff is interesting, but pretty hard. You know, there's just too many chumps to take it seriously. But I would love to meet a guy who was legit in that kind of stuff. But they're few and far between, I think. So I was thinking there yesterday about how it's been a while since I've gotten deep into any conspiracy theories. I used to be a big fan of conspiracy theories, just learning about them and stuff. I really enjoyed it. Just kind of getting into these alternative things. But the most recent one that I kind of got into was I watched a documentary called Going Clear on Scientology, which was absolutely fascinating. I never really knew that much about Scientology, just kind of the basic premise of you show up for your free personality test, or IQ test, or whatever it is, and they say oh my goodness, you're in the 99th percentile for cognitive resonance. You are a perfect candidate to really hone your skills and reach your intelligence potential by going to this meeting. And you kind of get roped into the initial meetings where everything is really positive and you're learning really cool concepts about your mind and psychology. Slowly get roped into it, and before you know it, then you're on the path to reaching a state of clarity. And it looked like from the original inception of Scientology had, whatever. I don't even know if it had levels. L. Ron Hubbard is the guy who coined the term Scientology and came up with the kind of structure of it. And he was previously a science fiction writer and pretty charismatic guy. These people usually are. But yeah, it's a good documentary. Check it out. It's well worth a watch, if only to watch Tom Cruise receiving the Freedom Medal of Valor, which is just some sort of phony award that they made up specifically for Cruise because he's a very powerful ally, I would imagine, in terms of advertising the religion to the masses. Tom Cruise, having him on board definitely doesn't do them any harm, I think, anyway. But I mean, what do I know? But it is crazy just watching him getting up. He's at this big Oscars style pageantry event where it's like the Scientology AGM or award ceremony. I don't know what the fuck it is, but yeah, he gets it, and he's up on the stage like he's just won a Nobel Prize, and he's like, if you've got the power to influence humanity, then it is your responsibility as a human to do that. And he's there clenching his fist like some sort of fucking egomaniac. It's worth it. It's worth watching just to see the confidence in his face with the Freedom Medal of Valor. It's really quite something. But yeah, that's a hot recommendation from me. It's an interesting one, well worth a watch. some fascinating insights into the structure of Scientology. And what else? There was that thing in the news recently about the dentist who killed Cecil the lion. I don't really know a whole lot about it. Sad, you know, pretty sad. Like, bit of a fucking dick. What's his deal? Like, shooting a lion with a bow and like just injuring it, and then the poor lion is just like hobbling around injured for 40 hours before some of this guy's assistants just finish it off with a rifle. Really sad, and a great example of this new era of internet justice, where that just fucking went live and everyone online just went after this guy. He shut down his practice. I think he's essentially on the run right now. You know, fuck. I mean, it is a good example of that kind of social justice, but you know, that shooting a lion is very sad, obviously, but you know, there's all sorts of horrific humanitarian issues going on that just kind of get passed by. And now that's not to say, you know, what's more wrong, or you know, what should we be spending our time. It's just interesting, really, about what people gravitate towards and what people kind of get up and their soapbox and start pontificating about it. And then I guess it's also the fact that just, you know, people absolutely love lions. The Lion King has probably a lot to do with that, which we all loved. Probably my favourite Disney movie. I always thought it was kind of interesting how in a lot of Disney movies, like, the bad guys were kind of really camp, posh guys, like Scar. Scar was like really kind of posh, kind of camp voice, like, "Oh, Simba, that'd be ridiculous," that kind of shit. Whereas like his brother, who I assume he grew up with in the Serengeti, Mufasa, is like, "Simba, you must learn the responsibilities." You know, just pure fucking like power voice. And then and then Scar, what a bastard. But that was a brilliant movie. You know, it was absolutely outstanding. And the devastating scene where Scar could have saved Mufasa during the wildebeest stampede is probably the most moving scene I've ever witnessed as a movie fan, and probably the closest I've come to tears in any movie, and I'm not ashamed to say that. You know, I'll stand up and I'll say that, and I'll put myself out there on the cross. That was very, very sad. But, you know, it's through great adversity that we really find ourselves, and that's what Simba did. And he rose to the occasion, and it took some time away, you know, under the tutelage of Simone and Pumbaa, an unlikely pairing of mentors, but one that worked out nonetheless, and a pairing that offered Simba many valuable lessons that he may not have learned otherwise, and certainly not in such an unconventional manner. But when he came back to Pride Rock and saw what he was dealing with, you know, he stepped up to the plate, and he took on Scar, his uncle Scar, and his army of hyenas. And also, he did not do it alone, because he had a powerful ally in the form of the martial arts expert mandrill of Rafiki, who was just fucking lads up with his stick he had that stick with the little mango things or something on the end, and man, he's like this old. He is the Zen master. He's the perfect example of a true martial artist. He was like meditating all the time, and he was always very present. You know, he's always in the moment, providing fantastic advice. And then when it came to throw down, he was slamming lads, just throwing leather hard, and just, man, those guys didn't stand a chance. But that wraps it up for today, for Tuesday morning on the podcast. You know, there's not going to be many Tuesdays exactly like this one. In fact, there's probably going to be none. So, based on that, you know, it's important that you realise that this is an opportunity to progress. Today is the day that you may make the biggest leap in your own evolutionary psychology that you've ever made up to this point. And maybe you're setting yourself up for the greatest home run of all time. And I want to be the one to tell you that you can do it. So, until next time, be good, stay strong.